I feel like it's almost inevitable when watching Sex and the City to ponder the philosophical question of why Big and Samantha never dated. And most importantly, why Samantha was never Big's type. Now, on the surface, in that first pilot especially, we see that they are seemingly the perfect match for each other. Samantha is, very free spirited. She doesn't really care about who she sleeps with, she's very empowered. That being said, Big, on the other hand, as we continue to watch the series, we realize that he is Mr. Commitment Issues. So it almost seems like a benevolent match, if you will. Samantha would have had a one night stand, and Big would have been, seemingly satisfied with the arrangement and would have been able to continue with his non committal ways, dating other people if he wanted to, without seeking an exclusive relationship and having to really deal with the consequences of that. So again, it begs the question, why did he turn her down in the first episode? I would argue, and I think a lot of persons would argue, is that with Big's track record, he's very consistent. He's attracted to the type of woman who keeps a layer of mystery and a certain level of sophistication. Also, there is a bit of typecasting that happens throughout the series, in that we see that Big notoriously has a thing for brunettes. He does not traditionally go for blondes. He sees blondes as fun and brunettes to settle down and to make wives. His first wife, Barbara, was sophisticated and cool, and Natasha in season 2 to 3 was chic and very polished. And Carrie famously calls her the stick figure with no soul. Even Carrie herself was a puzzle, her constant hot and cold giving Big the cat and mouse thrill he fed on. Now, Samantha, by contrast, that is not to say that she was not as chic or not as sophisticated or cool or polished as any of those other figures, but how they go about showing their femininity and sexuality are two very different ways. She openly brags about stealing, a sauna membership by impersonating someone else, and it says it all with a smirk over brunch. In season 4, when we're watching all that glitz, she confidently makes out with a woman at the club and casually tells the girls she's just trying something new. Samantha does not hide her cards, and for Big, who thrives on the chase, that level of transparency kills the spark before it could even happen. Also, Samantha was never someone that could be played with, which I think really goes over a lot of persons' heads. People always ask the question fundamentally, and I mean, in my holistic opinion, Samantha would have eaten Mr. Big for lunch. That's just my opinion. There are other aspects to Samantha's personality that make her very enigmatic and also a very much a repellent to Mr. Big. She was allergic to the kind of chaos that Big brought into Carrie's life. I mean, think season 2, X and the City, Carrie gives the iconic monologue about Big marrying Natasha. Maybe some women aren't meant to be tamed. Who's sitting across from her? Samantha. Again, the two blondes, rolling her eyes, telling Carrie to stop torturing herself and to get back in the game. And then there are other instances when Carrie breaks down at her own birthday party after Big goes Samantha. After Big ghosts her. Samantha lifts her martini and keeps the night moving. She doesn't romanticize Big, and she diagnoses him. Then there's also the narrative architect of it all. From a storytelling standpoint, Carrie and Big were the axes of the series. They were always meant to be the push and pull defined by the show's central question. Will she ever get what she wants from him? And Samantha, on the other hand, represented the alternative path, fulfillment without needing a man's validation. In a lot of ways, I think this also answers like another big question that viewers tend to have when watching the series, or more of like an insider, if you will, like thought that always runs through big Sex and the City like rewatches, is that we know that if Big had ever met Charlotte first, he would have married her and not Carrie. And who knows, maybe Carrie would have like ended up maybe still sleeping with him, because we do know that Big had a wandering eye, and we know that he cheats on Barbara in season 2, I believe, because his eyes wandered right over to her best friend. And a lot of this just goes back again, and it hinges on the differences that The plot of the story of Sex and the City was never gonna let Big and Samantha collide because the entire show hinged on their differences. Carrie's love life was chaos and Samantha's was control. Carrie wanted to be chosen, Samantha chose herself. If Big and Samantha ever dated, the tension evaporates and so does the plot. I mean, at most, we would have probably gotten like a brunch conversation that Samantha shares with the girls, and then Big is history for, the rest of the season. We don't get that big climax of watching the show. We don't get the push and pull. We, as the viewers, don't get the release of when she finally leaves him, even though she ends up back with him, which is another topic that I'll get into. But I think it is very important to know that famously, Samantha never ceded control, which is why when she's dating her, fancy and wealthy hotelier, Richard Wright, she makes it very clear that she's in it for fun at first. And ultimately, we see her go through the ringer a little bit with Richard because he ends up cheating on her. And we see her choose herself again. The reality is, Big could not handle that kind of standoff. He needed a woman that would bend to his will. And Samantha was never going to be that woman. In my opinion, Big was Carrie's problem and not Samantha's possibility. He represented the allure and, of course, the agony of chasing someone who may never fully choose you. Samantha represented the antidote to that narrative. The reminder that you don't have to wait for love to live fully. And that's why Big and Samantha could, would, and should never happen.